Just going to very briefly introduce ourselves, and then we'll move on to the main event, which will be kicked off by Jonathan. So, Jonathan, do you want to introduce yourself first?
Yeah, hi, I'm Jonathan Seeger, Policy Delivery Director at Business London. For those of you who don't know Business London, we are a business membership organisation with the mission to make London the best city in the world in which to do business, working for and with the rest of the UK.
Thank you, Jonathan. And Peter?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Peter Hogg, and I'm the London City Executive and UK and Ireland Country Director at Arcadis.
And Jonathan, you're going to start us off this afternoon by briefly introducing the report that's just been published.
I am. If you excuse, I'm going to try and nip over there and see if I can work technology. So to give you a quick run through. So last week, in conjunction with Arcadis, we published a report, Pathway to Delivery. Do go on our website to check it out in more detail. I'm just going to give you a very quick overview of what was in this report, which will set up our conversation. So within the report, we profiled 5 key projects within the London region and went into great detail with them, interviewed all of these different schemes, all of which are members of ours, to really kind of understand what their growth and expansion plans are. And the report is focused on London's global connections, as you've seen, via air, rail and sea. And it is focused on that because that is the source, we believe, of one of the sources of London's international competitiveness, the ability to trade and export internationally, as well as supporting tourism and visitor economy, is all linked to our global connectivity. And the easier we make it to travel, to get back to the UK, to get to markets, the more competitive we are as a country. And this really is the source of competitive advantage that we have over many other places in the world, is the fact that we are a hub of global connectivity. All of the projects profiled in this report have ambitious plans to expand their capacity and to increase connectivity. And the reason why we've put this report together is really to acknowledge the moment that we are in. It has been a source, I think, of frustration perhaps that we've not been able to expand our global links for a while, but that seems to be changing. And we were keen to work with Arcadis and to work with these projects, to look at how these projects really can be brought into reality, and to offer our support and constructive advice to government about how they can work with these projects to turn them into projects which can be delivered. So I think it's important to get within context the size of the prize that we're talking about here. So the growth plans of London's global ports, we reckon in the region of 53 billion pounds or so, and we've outlined there the different investment plans that all of these projects have outlined. Clearly they're all of a different scale, but it's crucial, I think, to focus on the fact that this is all private investment. So that really is to be welcomed and, of course, nurtured. What we go on to do in the report, and I won't go into the detail of that here now, is to look at what it will actually take to deliver each project. So we've gone through in detail with the projects and looked at some of the barriers they're experiencing, or some of the things which kind of need to fall in place to make that project deliverable, and then set out a timeline which they are on the record for delivering against. And clearly some of that timeline is dependent on circumstances beyond their control, but to the best of the knowledge we've kind of mapped that out. And we end, and this will be the source, I'm sure, of some discussion between us, around what can the government actually do to support these expansion and economic growth plans. These are crucial for the UK. This is not just about London. Yes, they're located in London, but these are actually, as we see it, hubs to increase economic growth across the country and provide us with really strong foundations for moving forward in the years ahead. So we've listed 4 things here. The first being kind of join up government. So this is not just about Whitehall sorting itself out, but it's also Whitehall working in conjunction with national, regional and local government to align plans, to streamline decision making, and also to crucially remain engaged with these projects. So many will have consent already or are seeking consent for what they're doing. But we think it's beholden on government to actually stick with the project through the lifetime that it exists, to actually work in partnership and to help get over the bumps and barriers that present themselves, rather than stand as a kind of distant consenting authority. Second is around regulatory reform, and here we've seen the government last year try and kind of align regulatory frameworks with their economic growth mission. We think that's really positive, and we think they need to carry on that trajectory. Thirdly, again, carrying on positive steps the government have already taken around planning and project delivery reform. We have the new Planning and Infrastructure Act. It may well be that we need further changes, but essentially it is creating a system which is quicker, which is smoother, and supports more large projects getting through on time. And lastly, and very crucially, especially on the day of the spring statement, the focus on ensuring that we are levying the right amount of taxes on these global hubs, these global ports. Coming back, I suppose, to the size of the prize, these are all private schemes. These are private investment. And if we don't get the tax regime right, this capital is footloose. It can go and choose to invest around the world. So we need to ensure that we are striking the right balance here between levying a fair amount, but not deterring that investment. So that's kind of just a very quick overview, and I'm going to sort of hand back to Helen, and going to have some questions.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. And whilst you take your seat and settle back into the stage, I'm going to ask Peter the first question. So London's ports and airports are privately owned and operated. So in your opinion, what's the biggest opportunity to unlock investment and growth?
Well, I think the biggest opportunity, Helen, comes from being really, really clear on what the prospectus for investment is, and setting out that investment landscape, which is one of the reasons why we were so keen to contribute to and to get involved in this report. Arcadis being a global organisation, as you well know, we speak regularly to investors from around the world, organisations that have investment choices to make. And one of the things that they infallibly look for is clarity and confidence around what the investment opportunities are. There's then a certain amount of detail to work into around how those opportunities get unlocked. But first of all, it's about being clear in articulating what the opportunities are and providing a level of confidence that those opportunities are deliverable within a time frame that's interesting to that particular investor.
Thank you, Peter. So, Jonathan, we're in Manchester today, and with various politicians and industry leaders across Northern England joining us here. How is this work relevant, and importantly, how is this research for London going to be used by stakeholders in the whole of England?
So, yes, these ports are located in London or the wider southeast region, but they are gateways to the UK, and the growth and the trade and the investment that is associated with them are a national benefit, and these are really national assets. So from our perspective, we are sort of uninterested in the location-specific factors on them, other than that, that there are lots of sort of small things that kind of need to happen for them all to unlock that investment in particular places, but the benefit is clearly national. And we need to treat these projects as they are nationally significant infrastructure. And not only that, but as we're delivering them, they're interwoven into the UK supply chain. And across cities, the developments that happen to actually deliver these projects will see employment through the UK. And I think it's important not to forget that. But they are also, we go into some detail within the report about some of the kind of individual benefits associated with each project. but it's striking the reliance as a country we have on some of these ports. So London Gateway, for example, contains over 50% of the deep refrigerated food that comes into this country. So you can see the importance of ensuring that we're able to expand that asset in order to have a secure food supply chain in this country. So yes, centred in London and the South East, but actually they are of national significance and of direct relevance to the whole of the UK.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. So we mentioned earlier, Peter, in Jonathan's summary of the report that there are some barriers to taking forward these projects, and some of the developers and owners are experiencing those barriers. So thinking about how government can remove those and facilitate this growth and the development of the national infrastructure, how do you think government should be focusing their energies?
Well, I'm afraid I'm going to sound a little bit like a stuck record, Helen, because I'm going to start off by saying I think the first thing is creating a sense of, if not certainty, then at least predictability and confidence that what the government commits to laying out a legislative framework, policy framework to allow, is actually what's going to happen. So that, first of all, is critical. I think particularly with some of these larger opportunities where you're looking at significant global investment into the UK, it's also really important to think about the planning framework. We work with a number of clients. In fact, you and I have recently been working with one who look at the UK planning system, and let's be charitable, they find it eccentric. Yeah. And I think there is a great opportunity to simplify the planning system and to provide more clarity around its likely outcomes. So I think that has got to be a key factor. And I think the third and final one that shouldn't be discounted, and Jonathan, you kind of alluded to this both in your speech but also in your answer to the last question, is that we need to ensure that investors have confidence around the pipeline and the delivery capacity to actually deliver investments of this scale. The UK sometimes gets a slightly bad rep for its ability to deliver large-scale infrastructure. I think that's perhaps a little bit unfair. Yeah, for sure, we can point to examples of where things haven't gone quite as well as we would have liked, but actually we've got a great track record at delivering really big infrastructure, and we should be making that as part of our pitch. You know, if you invest in the UK, if you invest in major opportunities like this, they will get built and they will become world-class assets.
Thank you, Peter. And yeah, certainly one of the themes of the report that came across to me was that funding is not the constraint here, as it is in quite a lot of our conversations over these next 2 days, but actually delivery certainty is that constraint. So, Jonathan, what can we as consultants, engineers and developers focus on to make sure we have the right skills and the right commercial models and creativity to be able to deliver this infrastructure?
I think it's kind of very heavily linked to the certainty that these... So if we know that these schemes are taking place, then I think people can kind of skill up and focus their investment and find the right models based on knowing that these projects are actually going to really happen this time. And we've had a few false dawns with certainly one of the projects profiled in the report. But that sense that this really is happening now, I think, allows people to take a view on, from a kind of personnel perspective, how can we get more people into the sector? How can we think about the models of delivery that will work? And actually here I sort of take another sector as an example of kind of what's going wrong with the lack of certainty. So housing, for example, and you see sort of there's been a wave of people trying to invest in modular factories. And ultimately what seems to be bringing that down is a lack of certainty over supply. And planning sometimes gets in the way, amongst many other things. And if you sort of draw that analogy to these schemes, if these schemes, if you get the sense that they really are happening, actually I think the market responds.
Yeah.
The market will clear. People will invest in the right skills. Clearly, there is work to be done also in aligning training providers to ensure that the next generation are actually studying and focusing on the skills that we need. But it's so crucial that we have that certainty. And I think from there, I see so much more easily, being unlocked.
Thank you. So last question from me, and then we'll ask for some questions from the audience if there are any. Peter, we both work for an engineering consultancy. So what do you think our role is as systems integrators here? We work with asset owners, we work with project teams, we work with government. What can we what can we do, to unlock our full potential?
I think you've kind of answered the question, Helen. I'm always really, really dispirited when I see engineers, professional practitioners sitting sort of primly on the sidelines waiting for someone else to make something happen and then saying, oh right, well I can get involved now, I can go and do my little bit. I think what's really important is that engineers, advisors, consultants play a key role in terms of owning an accountability for getting some of these opportunities over the line and effectively making our own weather around how we enable projects and programs to come together, how we make the case that this is actually a really strong investment, how we use our global reach, our connectivity, our networks to promote these opportunities so that we're taking them to potential investors and making them aware of them and giving a degree of assurance that we believe in them as credible, reputable professionals. So I think it's about being front-footed, it's about being entrepreneurial, and it's about actually believing that we are a central player, not a bit part player in the delivery of major programs, and getting over that sort of old-fashioned, old school, we're a professional advisor who gets brought in, at the time we want to do our work. No, we have to be part of the whole in this.
An excellent call to action. Thank you very much, Peter. I don't know if anyone in the audience had any questions or if we've got a roving mic on its way. So if anyone wants to put up their hands and ask us anything, please do. Obviously not. No questions from the audience.
Stunned silence.
Yeah. So in that case, we will close with a few final words from you both. So Jonathan, starting with you, the report's been published this week, which is a really exciting time. How would you summarise the work and what are you looking forward to now that it's been published?
So from our perspective, it's been a great collaboration with Arcadis, and we wanted this out there now because we want it to kind of set the tone for delivery. We see this as a crucial point in the cycle. We know that £53.5 billion are on the table waiting to invest. The purpose of the report is to kind of highlight that investment and really kind of hit home the fact that business wants to work in partnership with government to deliver this. We desperately require economic growth as a country. We see these projects as helping to unlock that growth. So now it's kind of over to government to kind of really work in partnership with these schemes to ensure that they are deliverable and that we secure that investment which is on the table.
Thank you, Jonathan. A similar question to you then, Peter. So obviously our team has worked and supported the research for this report. How do you think that's going to help the industry and help us as a business?
Well, I think it's going to do a fantastic job around raising profile of some really critical investable projects. Projects that are great not only in and of themselves, although they will be fantastic projects and they will drive economic growth in the UK. But these are projects that are going to be long-term, generational accelerators for the UK's position in the world and for UK's broader growth. I mean, Jonathan, you spoke really eloquently earlier about the role of these as gateways and drivers of international competitive advantage. I always love being on panels and things with you because I always learn something. I always get some amazing little factoid from you. I now know that 50% of the UK's frozen food comes through Thames Gateway, for example. So I think this is a really, really good example of how this report will be, if you will, a drop of ink in the bucket of water. It will have an impact, it will have a force multiplier, an ability to promote investment and drive economic growth for the UK way beyond just a few sides of A4, a few pages on an internet page. But it's actually going to have a real impact on the UK's economic performance.
Fantastic summary from you both. So will you join me in thanking both Jonathan and Peter for speaking to us today? Thank you very much.